drawing upon a tradition that is pretty popular in a lot of churches around the country, around the world actually, for the first Sunday in October, and that is a celebration of the creation. You know, we often do that by honoring St. Francis of Assisi, a 12th century monk who was more than just the patron saint of bird baths. He was a revolutionary working on behalf of poor people and chastising folks who weren't helping out. He was quite a troublemaker, but he's known for his wonderful and undying love for animals, and that's something to remember today. In addition to that, I want to bring Francis together with someone else I think should be a saint in a secular way, Carl Sagan. I'm going to talk about him this morning, and I'm going to share some poetry from Mary Oliver. So one thought I had today is I would call this Francis, Carl, and Mary, the next trio. But I'm glad I did. The poem I want to share with you this morning, or opening words, is probably a poem you all know, Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I'll tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and excited, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Mary Oliver, Wild Geese. This time I invite you to share any joys or sorrows that you'd like to share with the community, or anything in between. So I want to start out by saying we just heard that one of our beloved members, Nina, had a fall and has been in the hospital. And she's currently in the medical unit at Tryon Estates. I don't know that she is available to receive visitors, but we can always send cards if you're so inclined. I know that she would appreciate that, and just to keep her in your heart and in your thoughts. So I have a joy to share, and Maria and I both share in this. As you know, after our last service, first Sunday in September, we headed off to New York City for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Now, for those of you who don't know it, I was the priest in charge of the church right across the street from the World Trade Center, and after 9/11, we set that place up as a sort of a hospitality and support mission for Ground Zero workers, and served 8.5 months there, offering meals and chiropractic care, massage therapy, music 4 times a day. We were kind of a 4-star venue in Ground Zero, and it meant the world to the firefighters, police officers, and sanitation workers, and construction workers, any number of people. We served over 500,000 meals by the end of that service in June of 2002. So I was invited back to be a part of something called the Calling of Names ceremony that they have in St. Paul's Chapel, where for 3 hours on the day of 9/11, we call the name of everyone who died on that day and everyone who has died since of related causes. And as you know, the plight of first responders after 9/11 is a difficult one, and people are really starting to die now of something called Ground Zero related disease. So we went up, and I was able to reacquaint myself and reconnect with some people I hadn't seen in 20 years or 19 years, you know, and oh my gosh, I didn't know if going in, if all the trauma that I carried with me from all that experience would be triggered or not, you know. I had PTSD and depression for a long time. I didn't know if, you know, it would be so crazy or if I just didn't know how I'd respond. But I wanted to go. And we went, and Maria was such a rock for me, kind of supporting me every step of the way. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had, you know, in a very long time. And I am so happy and overjoyed about having that experience, and your support as a fellowship, your encouragement and your love, we took that with us and it sustained us while we were there, and it brings us back to you today. So thank you. That's our joy, and we're thrilled to share that. Okay. Let's see. So let's say together in unison, we rejoice together and we grieve together as one. Help us to remember that every human heart holds its own joys and sorrows. To the work of this fellowship, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action we call community, we dedicate our lives, and these are our offerings. Okay, so before I get started here, I'm going to pull a Baptist trick out, and I'm going to ask you to turn to your neighbor and say, "Hello, I'm so glad to see you." Hello, I'm so glad to see you. Excellent. Thank you for that. I am so glad to see you. And for our newcomers, we're thrilled you're here, whether your visit lasts for an hour or for a lifetime. We're all in this together, and on first and third Sundays, we gather in the whimsical world and find new ways to navigate this crazy world we live in. The reason I wanted to do this theme for our time together this morning is because, wow, we live in a crazy time. You know, the climate scientists are telling us that we have a short window to do something significant and serious to stem the tide of climate disruption and climate change. We hear so many terrible stories on the news, and you know, I believe they're true. I believe we are in a very difficult place. I watched a YouTube video yesterday of a young teenage boy who was trying to talk about this, and he says, well, you know, it's like this. I love studying science because I'm studying awe. And we need to focus more on awe. And, you know, he's studying astronomy. And he said, now, on the one hand, you have this awe, but on the other hand, you have stuff that sucks. And, you know, we have to balance the two. As only a teenage boy can say, right? Here's the difficult stuff, and it's true. But we also have to hold in balance the awe and the awesome and beauty, you know. We have to hold these in tension. And the one helps us with the other. And so today, even in light of the challenges facing us, this is not going to be a sermon on environmental stewardship, but on the celebration of creation and joy in creation. I'm going to turn to St. Carl now. I'm not sure he would appreciate being called a saint. But how many of you watched Cosmos? Yeah. I didn't really pay attention the first time around. And this past summer, I watched some of the stuff, and I was just in awe. I mean, incredible stuff. So moved was I want to share with you his poem, his meditation on what he calls the pale blue dot. there we are. Kind of makes you feel small, doesn't it? This photograph was taken from 6 billion kilometers away from the Voyager spacecraft, just as it was exiting our solar system back in the year 1990. That's us. The quotation that he said about the pale blue dot, I'm looking for it, I have it written out. I guess I brought it. Every person that you've ever known, every person, every human being that's ever lived, every king, every pauper, every teacher of morality, every crooked politician has lived on that pale blue tiny dot. Wow. So, I want to take you on a little bit of a tour, if you'll allow me. This is the closest galaxy to us, Andromeda. It's about 4.8 light years away, I think it is. This was discovered by Edwin Hubble in the year 1924. Before he discovered this galaxy, it was the only idea, the popular idea of all the scientists and astrophysicists, that the Milky Way galaxy was the universe. Yeah, 1924. Can you imagine what our parents, our grandparents have gone through, or went through? You know, Henry Ford brings the Model T into production in 1908. Before that, people were getting around on horses and all that. You know, and then, gosh, the Roaring Twenties, the crash in 1930, the race riots of the 60s, going to the moon in the 60s and 70s. I mean, this is an incredible span of activity that's been condensed in just about 100 years or so. It's mind-boggling to think about that. So this is the Andromeda Galaxy, and it's the largest one that you can see just barely with the naked eye. Okay. Anybody know what this is? Black hole. This is the first ever photograph of a black hole. Shocking. We didn't know that black holes could be photographed because of the gravitational pull of the black hole pulling everything into itself. Bending light, even. It's extraordinary. This is one of our nearest stars, Sirius, which is, I think, is about a little over 4 light years away too. And that means it takes light 4 years to travel from there to here. And the speed of light is 286,000 miles per second. So that's a big distance. And this is our closest star neighbor. Isn't that incredible? Think about that. And just a few years ago, when the Hubble telescope was launched in honor of Edwin Hubble, who discovered Andromeda, they decided to spend 10 days just examining a very tiny slice of space. A tiny slice where they couldn't see anything. They didn't know anything was there. And so they focused on that little sliver of space for 10 days. And look what they came back with. This is called the Ultra Deep Field, the Hubble Space Telescope Ultra Deep Field. Billions of galaxies, billions of stars in each galaxy. I mean, it just is mind-boggling. I don't know if you guys remember that cartoon Ziggy. Anybody remember Ziggy? I used to love Ziggy, and I had one cut out I had above my desk for the longest time. And he's sitting out on like the edge of a canyon with his faithful companion, his little dog, and he's looking up at the night sky and all the stars, and he says to his little dog, "There's nothing half vast about the universe." V-A-S-T. And I would say that's true. So we have this enormous scale, huge scale. But you know, that's not all that's been happening in science in recent years. In the early part of the 20th century, we discovered there's a whole new world that's so small, a world of subatomic particles, that so shocking that Einstein himself decided that it couldn't be true, that he wished it wasn't true, and he spent the rest of his life, and he's one of the first people to discover it, but he spent the rest of his life trying to disprove it because it messed up his equations. This is a stem cell being converted to a brain cell. Look at that. Tiniest of tiny, a millionth the size of a hair on your head. Extraordinary. And then we have stuff that's in between. We have zebras. Does anybody know what the collective noun for a group of zebras is? A dazzle. I heard a thing on BBC a couple of years ago about the guy who came up with these names for all the different creatures, and you know, and he was biased, of course, because he was Catholic, I think, and he didn't really like Protestants. So he had what was the name he had for Protestants? A heresy of Protestants is what he called it. But look at here. What do you call a group of butterflies? A kaleidoscope of butterflies. That's pretty cool. This is an easy one. Who knows what the lion group is called? A pride of lions. Yeah. Giraffes, anyone? A tower of giraffes. Someone was having a lot of fun. He wasn't a big fan of crows. What do you think?
A murder.
A murder of crows, yeah. Yeah. That's fun. So we have all these crazy, wild creatures. If you just sit for 1 minute and think about what's right in front of you, you know, if you think about your own dog, your own pet, your own fish, how exquisite the life in them is. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. And here's some more animals, more friendly animals. These are our hens. Dulcie, named for Dulcinea. Peaches, because she really likes peach scraps. And our French black copper Moran named Truffles. She likes bread. And our faithful companion, Maggie the Wonder Dog. She's been with me for 10 years. And with us now for 6, 7 years, yeah. She has a good time chasing off this guy, our friendly neighborhood bear, who's not as welcome because, as you can see, he really likes to knock over our garbage can. In fact, coming here this morning, driving out, he knocked over the garbage can. It splayed all over the road. So our neighbors are probably, you know, complaining about us under their breath right now. But we'll get it when we get home. Yesterday, Maria and I decided I wanted to go to the Parkway just to get inspired for the talk today. Look at this photograph. Isn't that stunning? I took that with my phone. Those moody clouds, the leaves are not yet turning. Some places you see it, just a bare sample. And wow, there's some really interesting trees on the parkway. How many of you guys have been on the parkway recently? Yeah, it's a treasure. Right here in our backyard, it's a treasure. Look at that tree. And then walking along, I found a tree hugger. Look at the size of this tree. And then, of course, probably my favorite place is the ocean. So, all right. I have a quotation here somewhere from Franco and Sagan. All right. Carl Sagan said that science is not only compatible with spirituality, it's a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined, is surely spiritual. So are our emotions in the presence of great art, or music, or literature, or acts of exemplary selfish courage. And that's from his book, The Demon-Haunted World. Science is a candle in the dark. Love that. So, wow, in the past 100 years, we have gone from, you know, a sort of a less than impressive understanding of the science of the big wide universe to a fairly complex understanding of it now. The Hubble telescope has given us so many gifts, and the next telescope, the James Webb telescope, will be launched in December, deployed hopefully within 2 years, and it's about 8 times more powerful than the Hubble. So, wow, I'm going to buckle my seatbelt before that goes live, because who knows what we're going to discover. It's a big, wide world, and it can be overwhelming to think about it. But if we just sit for a minute, open our hearts, and cherish the beauty that's around us, and that inspires us to live our lives in accordance, lives of kindness, compassion to others. When we realize that every other human being that has ever lived has lived on this tiny speck, this mote of dust in a cosmic sunbeam, as Sagan put it, it's humbling to think about what we share in common. It's important for us to acknowledge our commonalities, to see our connections, and to see our responsibilities of caring for one another in love and grace and compassion. It comes down to this, I think. These images that I've shared with you, large and small, stellar and microscopic, and everything in between, if we pay attention, are exquisite, beautiful beyond measure, humbling, tender. They evoke feelings of awe and vulnerability and humility. So how are we to manage in light of all of this? What are we to do with this awe, and how does that impact the things that are not so great? Can we be inspired over here to make a difference over here? Well, I think that's the magic of what I'm hoping to convey today. You know, Carl Sagan wrote a novel that became a movie. Maybe some of you saw the movie Contact. Jodie Foster played the scientist and a woman traveling through space and time. Dr. Elliot Arroway, how's that for a name for an astronaut? And here's a reflection that she had. Carl Sagan wrote this. She had studied the universe all her life, but had overlooked its clearest message. For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. Only through love can we begin to appreciate the vast expanse of interstellar space and this fragile planet, our island home we call Earth. The connection between the sun that provides for us life-sustaining warmth and our pets and animals who make our hearts glad in love is so profound. Love. So, love for creation, love for one another. Viktor Frankl, one of my heroes, was a survivor of the Nazi concentration camp, and he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't read it, put it on your list. It'll change your life. Towards the end of the book, he said this: "A thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth. The truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret of human poetry and human thought and belief, and all that they have to impart, that the salvation of man is through love and in love. I understood how a man who has nothing left in this world still may know bliss, be it only for a brief moment, through the power of love." So, I'm trying to connect the dots between what's overwhelming, what's awe-inspiring, and us in the middle. And this is the first of two parts. We're going to pick up there in 2 weeks. We talk about the connection between science and spirituality and how it connects to each one of us. But love for each other, love for creation, love for ourselves. It's so incredibly important. And that sustains us. That empowers us when we are overwhelmed by the news that we hear. It uplifts us when we see the problem of climate devastation. But even more importantly, perhaps, it inspires us to do something about it. You can't love a place unless you know a place. And you can't know a place until you open your heart to that place. This morning I invite you to open your hearts to your community, your local place, your connection to this, your piece of this pale blue dot we all live on. But don't be overwhelmed. Connect in love and through love, inspired by love. Mary Oliver had a final word for us this morning. When we're feeling a little overwhelmed about what we see on the news, the realities that we're living in, the challenges that we're facing, she has a poem called "I Go Down to the Shore." I go down to the shore in the morning, depending on the hour the waves are rolling in or moving out, and I say, "Oh, I am miserable. What shall I do?" And the sea says to me, in her lovely voice, "Excuse me, I have work to do." And our closing words, let's say together as we extinguish the flame. Would you be so kind, Becky? We extinguish the flame of this chalice. Let us follow the light of truth until we meet again.